August 19th, 2024. Special episode of Montreal Hockey Talk where Coach eats crow because I said something last week totally out of taste and it hit me in the face. So here we are. Big news today. A big trade at Habs land. It's time for Montreal Hockey Talk. Welcome to Montreal Hockey Talk, folks. I am Coach K, and of course, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and get notified because opportunities to prove me wrong don't come very often. Just ask the boys I did this show with for the better part of a decade. They'll admit I never tell you I'm wrong. But today, I will. Why? Because Kent Hughes hit me with a pie in the face, and Habsland...
Then everyone loses their minds.
That's right, everybody lost their minds because Kent Hughes traded Jordan Harris to the Columbus Blue Jackets in exchange for Patrik Laine and a 2026 second-round pick. Now, how the hell did you pull that off? I'd love to know, really, because it doesn't make any sense to me. Why would Don Waddell give up a second-round pick when he didn't have to? Well, he did in a sense need to give something a little bit extra to Montreal because they were taking on all of Patrik Laine's $9 million salary for the next 2 years. So, I mean, it is what it is. And I sat here the other day and I dropped the F-bomb. I said, fuck Patrik Laine. I didn't want him in Montreal. But that was before I found out the majority of what went on with his story. Now, we're not going to talk about the details of it, but by and large, the reason why Patrik Laine went into the player assistance program was for mental health reasons. And good on him for coming out and actually talking about it today in his press availability with Montreal and the press, because there aren't a lot of players that are going to sit out there and say, you know what, I've got an issue. Because, you know, hockey players are supposed to project a certain ruggedness about themselves and a certain toughness. But this is a different day and age, and players are made of a different ilk. And good on him for saying that he needed to address his mental health and take care of himself. It had nothing to do with hockey, according to what he said, and according to what Kent Hughes found out, which we'll talk about in a minute. At the end of the day, Laine took a time off from being a hockey player, much like what Jonathan Drouin did a couple of years ago, to figure himself out and figure out what he wanted in life. And in doing that, not only did he make himself better, but he took the time after all was said and done and he came out of the program to open a foundation for mental health along with his fiance to try to help people going through his situation. So you know what? I don't mind having a player like that in Montreal. I think what he's gone through actually builds character, and it's character that you'd like to see projected on the other players on the team. Now, talking about Jeff Gordon and Kent Hughes. Now, Hughes, of course, pulling this deal and Gordon signing off on it as he normally does. I mean, one of the things that we always talk about is the due diligence that teams do before they pull the trigger on a trade. And it seems to me like, according to what Kent Hughes said, they went through a long process of talking not only amongst each other, but to other people about whether or not they should go out and get Patrik Laine. Take a listen.
Don Waddell was gracious enough to, which isn't always the case in when you're negotiating a trade, that you have the ability to talk to a player before acquiring his rights. But Don was gracious enough to allow us to speak to Patrik, which Jeff Gordon, Marty St. Louis, and I did over the weekend, to just get a better understanding of his journey to where he is today, the struggles that he's had, and what he has done to put himself in a better place. We came away from that conversation very satisfied. We did a lot of other homework. I don't want to get into a lot of detail about that out of respect for Patrik and those people that we spoke to, but Patrik and Don were also gracious enough to let us speak to and consult on the medical file and just have the conversations that we felt we needed to have to be comfortable moving forward. And everybody involved came away very, very comfortable with Patrik and We also spoke to him about Montreal and the pressure that comes with this market. And as I said, he didn't shy away from it at all. In fact, I think he is looking for this type of a market to come play in.
Kent,
It's what you want to hear from a general manager, right? When he's going out to acquire a player, you don't want him to base it on his past. You want him to make it about his present. And it was never about Patrik Laine's ability or can he put the puck in the net. It's all about the man. And so you have to ask around and find out what other people know about what happened to the man, in this case, Patrik Laine. But let's get back to it for a minute before we move forward. I still don't understand the second rounder in 2026. And we know it's going to be a good one because, after all, Columbus is going to be horrific moving forward because they've got a lot of work to do to rebuild their team. But I understand the salary retention part of it and why the Canadians got that second rounder as a thank you for taking on all the salary, because it looked like Columbus didn't want to retain anything. And Montreal was actually not on Patrik Laine's no trade list. So he went to a team that he wanted to go to. He's coming here with a clean slate. He's coming here excited about being in Montreal. He even talked a little bit. I don't have the audio for it, but he talked a little bit about, Saku Koivu being the captain here in Montreal and the influence he had on him as far as being part of the Finnish national team program. The fact that when he won World Junior Gold in 2015, Koivu and Teemu Selanne were there to congratulate them because it's one of those rare occasions where it's not the U.S. and it's not Canada. So, he's had that touch of, with people that meant a lot to the Finnish people. And I think he wants to be one of those guys. He wants to be a leader. And I think part of that also reflects on what Kent Hughes wanted to say about how he expects Patrik Laine to be as a player. And not necessarily from a points perspective, but more along the lines of a human being perspective.
To me, this isn't a transaction that either he scores 40 or 50 or it's a bust. Far from it. My relay to him was, if you come here ready to be to contribute to this team, to do everything in your power to help us get to a place, and if that's the opportunity that you're looking for, then say no more. That's what I want to hear from you. Whether you score 20 goals or 40 goals, your success here is not going to be defined strictly by goals. It's going to be defined by your ability to help contribute to this team and help us. We're very young. He may be young at 26, but that still makes him an older statesman on the Montreal Canadiens. And we're hoping that as such, he'll do his part to help and teach our young players. And, we talked to him about that, about, you look back at your time when you came to Winnipeg as a young 18-year-old hockey player, and you think about the people and things that helped you be successful and the people or things that occurred that maybe made it more difficult to be successful, and carry that forward to the Montreal Canadiens and help us and help those players succeed.
just the detail, Kent.
So there you have it. He expects him to be a leader in the locker room. He expects him to, contribute. And whether he gets 20, like you said, or 40 goals, I think as a fan myself, coming off, what he's been through, being able to score 20 goals, I think that would be a step forward. But Patrik Laine also said to the press that he's not expecting to be a 20-goal scorer. He's expecting to be a 40 and 50. So it's not for a lack of confidence. God knows what the mental issue was, and I don't think it has anything to do with his ability to play the game. I don't think he was worried about, being able to finish. Because he referenced being able to do all the things that he needs to do to be a complete hockey player. I think there was something between the ears. And I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that he went from the Jets to Columbus and Columbus to now Montreal. I think something happened to him outside of the rink. It could be, maybe a family issue or whatever that may have really done some damage to his mental psyche. And good on him for getting the work done. Now, the other thing that Kent Hughes also referred to was his ability to merge with the locker room as it is. And I think one of the things that Hughes said was that, they've built a culture in Montreal that breeds winning, and he thinks that Laine is going to fit right in.
I think first and foremost, our locker room. and that they're credit to our coaching staff, to our entire organization. It starts from the top with Jeff Molson. I haven't, as everybody here probably knows or should know, like this is the first time that I've worked on the team side, so it's my first organization, but I've dealt with a lot with every team over my career as an agent. The personal touch that Jeff demonstrates, whether on so many different levels, but every player that we trade away, that he picks up the phone and calls, and every player that comes in. I didn't represent a lot of players that lived that experience. So I think it really starts from the top, that we have an environment here where people feel like they're part of something, they feel valued. They understand that being part of something means you have responsibility that comes with it. Ultimately, more than anything else, that comes from our coaching staff, and having good people that want to be part of a team, and good leadership. So that's important to us, and that was discussed with Patrik, and we're confident and hopeful that he will come here and he will add to that.
So there you have it. Patrik Laine, now a Montreal Canadian. Personally, I'm excited. I think it creates a logjam in the top six, something you haven't heard about in Montreal for a while. And just think of the possibilities. If you look at the lines, for example, the first line, okay, let's say, for example, we come back with Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky. Now, the second line is going to be Newhook, Kirby Dach, Patrik Laine. That's a solid top six. Add to that on the third line, you're going to have somebody like a Joshua Roy, Brendan Gallagher, Christian Dvorak. And that bottom six, you're going to have some fluctuation there, and you're going to have some inner battles. Guys that don't play well are going to be in and out of the lineup. Guys like Michael Pezzetta aren't going to see the ice very often because, there's way too much talent in that top 12 to be able to say, you know what, Pezzetta, you have some space. I think he's going to spend more time in the American Hockey League than he does in the National Hockey League this year, to be quite honest, especially given the fact that our Jack guy is supposed to be healthy all season long. And then you look at the defense. Well, you've got David Savard, Caden Gooley, Lane Hudson, Mike Matheson, 4 of the 6 defense to start the season. Plus, you've got Jaden Struble. You've got our Jack guy. I mean, Logan Mailloux is expected to crack the lineup. So there's your 7. Guys, I'm excited. Now that that's what the lineup is projected to maybe look like, I'm giddy, because this is the season I think Montreal goes over the hump. Now, of course, like we talked about a couple shows ago, it's also going to depend on whether their goaltending actually holds the fort. But given the fact that we expect the defense to be that much better this season, that's going to help the goaltending. That's going to help Montembeault and Primo be better between the pipes. And I think the Canadians are going to make the playoffs. I think it's set now. I don't think anybody can argue that point. And if you do want to argue the point, hashtag it, playoffs, in the comments after you watch this video or during or whatever. Now, the other thing, I am going to admit out loud, yes, for all of you to hear, I was wrong. I made a judgment call on a player before I had all the facts, and I'm embarrassed to say that I shouldn't have done it. I dropped an F-bomb and I said, fuck Patrik Laine, and you know what? I am sorry. I am happy that he's with Montreal. Even if it costs us $9 million for the next 2 years, it's only 2 seasons. You're not signing him long-term, unless, of course, you decide to hold on to him after the fact. But that's entirely up to you at that point. I haven't felt this excited in a long time, and I don't think Habs Nation has either.
Then everyone loses their minds.
Including me. Honest to God, right now, I really don't know what to say. And I wish I had everybody in studio to talk about it. The 4 guys, whether it was Murdako, especially Jason. JD would have lost his absolute fucking mind to this trade. And getting back to this trade, I said this online on Twitter and on Facebook. I'm going to say it here now. Where is It's Not PlayStation Mr. Bergevin? Because right now, it looks like Kent Hughes is playing Xbox, bitches, and he's making trades that nobody should be making. And guys, I don't know about you, but I had my trepidations about Kent Hughes being hired as a general manager. Not so much because I was worried about the type of person that he was, but his experience. Because after all, he was an agent. Like if you turned around and you told me that Alan Walsh became the GM of the Montreal Canadiens, I think I'd bang my head into the wall until the cows came home because, they call him agent provocateur for a reason. And that reason in and of itself would have been why I wouldn't have hired him as the GM of the Montreal Canadiens. So there you go. But not only Jeff Gordon, but Kent Hughes as well, they've impressed me by their patience, their thoughtfulness, and their ability to execute deals when they need to be executed. I haven't been impressed with GMs like this in a long time. I think the last guy to impress me as a GM with moves that really shocked me was Julien Brisebois in Tampa Bay. I mean, I think overall they've done a masterful job, not just giving the Canadians back much needed cap space in order to make a deal like this, but the minute Carey Price goes on LTIR, they're going to gain some of that that space as well, allowing them to make more deals. Now, when they put him on LTIR, it depends. They can do it now, or they can do it later in the season, allowing them even more cap space. I don't know how the math works, but the formula is a little wonky. But at best, the Montreal Canadiens are in a really good position, and that's really positive to see. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about, which I said yesterday in the show, and if you missed it, please go back and look at it, was why the Canadiens should help the Oilers. And now the Oilers managed to trade away Cody Ceci, opened up their opportunity to be able to sign one, if not both, of their RFAs, and be able to counter the offer sheets from St. Louis. But it's Mike Greer. You sucker. I know you're new at this, man. I get it. And Cody Ceci may very well be a good player to come into San Jose for you. But, I'm confused here because one of the things that you just did is you burned bridges with maybe about 50% of the general managers in the National Hockey League. Why? Again, because of Ken Holland, because of the respect that man commands throughout the league. So you may have some newer general managers that are going to be there and say, you know what, I'll deal with you because, you know what, you're a former player. I'll do you a solid. But there aren't going to be very many. You're going to be the Marc Bergevin, let's say, of the National Hockey League moving forward, because there are a lot of guys that didn't want to deal with Marc Bergevin. We've heard that before. And there are going to be a lot of guys because of what you just did that are not going to want to deal with you. Now, good on Cody Ceci. He lands in a good place where he's going to be an important player, despite the fact that he's not that upper echelon type of defenseman. But by and large, what is he going to bring to the table? Nothing. I mean, you traded away, you got rid of Erik Karlsson, and now you're bringing a guy like Cody Ceci. I mean, San Jose is a mess. You were bad last year. Oh my God, you're going to be bad this year. And okay, maybe you'll get the first overall pick this time around. But man, oh man, if you're going to rebuild that way, counting on the first overall pick, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble. The Canadiens got lucky. Got the first overall pick, managed to get Juraj Slafkovsky, took a shot at Slafkovsky based on his character again, and not so much on his ability. It was his confidence that really won over Kent Hughes and the organization. And when you've got guys with confidence, Patrik Laine again today, talking in his press conference, totally confident. Great. That's what you guys need in San Jose. Not, going out and burning bridges with general managers that won't want to help you later. And the Canadiens are right where they need to be at this point, right? San Jose should take a page out of the book because it's not the first time Jeff Gorton has done this. He did it in Boston, helping to rebuild the Bruins. He did it in New York, helping to rebuild the Rangers. And now he's doing it here in Montreal. The formula works, right? You're bad. You get a few draft picks. You stockpile prospects, good prospects. And sure, a couple of them were drafted with Bergevin still around. But again, nothing to do with him. More to do with his scouting staff. Nonetheless, you still got to give credit where credit is due. Now, you end up with these guys in the lineup and in the organization and playing and battling. And those internal battles are what breeds winning. You know, the guys are going to come up, they're going to go through their paces, whether it's a rookie camp or, you know, main camp. They're going to make their bones. The Canadians are going to have tough decisions to make, especially with the bottom six and with the bottom 2D. But those are good problems to have. Those are problems that we haven't had in years. You know, we got to the promised land in 2021 thanks to a team that had the desire to win and push forward despite all the injuries they had. And we got that close. You know, okay, it was a 5-game series we lost in. You know, we lost in 5. But character is what brought them to the Stanley Cup final that year. Talent and character is what's going to win them a Stanley Cup moving forward. And the way this team is being built right now should be the blueprint that all organizations base their teams on. And I'm not saying it because it's Habs and I'm the Habs fan. I'm saying it because it's what it is. I mean, there's no real way to get around it, right? I've been around enough general managers at the junior level to know that when they have a young team, it's troublesome. They always go through that cycle. You go through the cycle of having young players come in, make their bones, add a couple of vets, then finally get your team to a level where you think they're going to get to the finals. Then you lose in the finals, and you got to start all over again, whether you lose or you don't, right? You win, lose, whatever. If you win, people tend to come over a little bit more easily. If you lose, well, that's another issue altogether. So Montreal, right now, they're on that upwards trend. They're winning. They're moving up. Like I said, everything's about upward trends, whether it's players, whether it's the team, anything. So good on you, Montreal. Good on Kent Hughes and good on Jeff Gordon. Good on Jeff Molson for sitting back and letting Gordon do his job as the director of hockey operations, not only making the Canadians a contender, but bringing in, you know, quality people and quality players as well. Now, one last thing. I didn't make a graphic for it or anything to that effect. Oopsie. But I wanted to talk about how much Pascal Vincent had to do with Patrik Laine coming to Montreal. Because the question was asked at the press conference. If they asked Pascal Vincent, and Kent Hughes categorically said he didn't want to name names. I'm pretty sure that they talked to him, right? I think all of us can be sure of that. Whether or not Vincent said anything, that's another story. Because, you know, Pascal Vincent had him while he was an assistant in Winnipeg. He had him as an assistant and head coach in Columbus. In fact, he was the one that benched him after 18 games. So there had to be some kind of relationship there. And maybe, just maybe, Pascal recognized something that was happening to Patrik Laine and asked him to step back. Maybe he didn't. Maybe, you know, there could have been a discussion there. And I don't think it's a discussion that needs to be made public. And so one of the messages I want to have here in this particular instance is about people's mental health and what should be public and what shouldn't be. And any reporter that finds out that somebody's got a mental health issue and wants to dig deep into it should be fired. It's none of our business. What's going on between the ears of anybody, including me, including you, it's none of our business. Not publicly anyway. Privately, sure, if your family, if you want to talk about it, that's your prerogative. But when you're a public figure, nobody needs to figure out what happened. Nobody needs to know. Unless there's a crime that was committed and it's bugging the person, there's no reason why we need to know as fans or as individuals. It's none of our business. A person's mental health is a very delicate balance. And that balance can be affected by any type of stress, any type of questions, any type of direction that journalists can take. And we know, especially here in Montreal, that journalists make stupid decisions sometimes that can hurt players. Like, I forget who it was on the Journal de Montréal that went into the locker room after Saku Koivu and hurt his eye and took a picture of him with a flash when he's not supposed to be in the light and he was in a dark room. Because there's a rocket scientist for you who cares more about the story than he does the individual. That's what I'm trying to get at. Forget the story, right, about his mental health. What's important is he's a Montreal Canadian. What's important is his contributions to the community and his contributions on and off the ice. The rest doesn't matter. August 19th, 2024, the day Patrik Laine became a Montreal Canadian, is the day we all turn the page and we become better people for it. I'll see you next time.